The journey home aboard the Zoran ship was peaceful and comforting. Ella and Jake spent most of their time talking quietly, sharing stories, and discussing their experiences. Ella felt relief and happiness to finally be returning home. Yet she also felt a small sadness at leaving behind the simplicity of their life in the jungle, where she had discovered courage and friendship she never imagined possible. Upon landing on the Zoran home planet, a large crowd gathered to welcome Ella home. Her family stood at the front, anxiously waiting to see her. Ella stepped forward, joyfully embracing them. Tears of relief and happiness flowed freely. Ella's parents looked with surprise at Jake standing quietly nearby. Ella quickly introduced him, proudly explaining how Jake had saved her life and cared for her during their difficult time. Her mother approached Jake with warmth and gratitude. "We owe you so much," she said gently, her voice filled with deep emotion. "You brought our daughter safely home." Jake smiled humbly, clearly moved by her words. "Ella helped me just as much," he replied softly. "We made it through together." Word of Jake's bravery and kindness quickly spread through the crowd. The Zorans, who had always viewed humans as dangerous, now looked at Jake with curiosity and newfound respect. A formal meeting was quickly arranged with Zoran leaders to discuss Jake's experiences and the possibility of building friendship with humans. Ella was invited to speak, to share her first-hand experiences. Standing before the gathered leaders, Ella felt calm and confident. She spoke clearly and honestly about her time stranded with Jake, carefully explaining his bravery, kindness, and selflessness. "Jake showed me that our understanding of humans has been wrong," Ella explained seriously. "They are strong, yes, but they are also compassionate and brave. Jake risked everything to protect me without expecting anything in return." The leaders listened carefully, clearly moved by her sincere words. Finally, one leader spoke, his voice thoughtful. "Ella's experience teaches us something important," he said firmly. "It is clear we must reconsider our views about humans. We should reach out and seek understanding." The gathered Zorans nodded in agreement, clearly moved by Ella's testimony. Jake stood nearby, quietly proud of Ella's courage and conviction. After the meeting, Ella and Jake spent a quiet moment alone, reflecting on all they had achieved. "You changed everything," Jake said gently, smiling at Ella. "You've helped your people see humans differently." Ella smiled softly. "We did it together," she replied sincerely. "Without you, none of this would have been possible." In the following weeks, Jake became a respected guest among the Zoran people. He shared stories of Earth, teaching them about human life and culture. The Zorans listened carefully, eager to understand more. Ella and Jake continued to work together, promoting friendship and understanding between their two worlds. Together, they planned future visits and cultural exchanges. They felt excited and hopeful, knowing they were creating something meaningful and lasting. Ella's family warmly welcomed Jake, treating him like one of their own. Ella felt joy watching Jake become comfortable and accepted in her home. Her initial fear of humans had vanished completely, replaced by deep admiration and respect. Finally, the day came when Jake was scheduled to return to Earth. Ella felt sadness, knowing she would miss her friend deeply. She accompanied him to the spaceport, where his ship waited. "I'll miss you," Ella said quietly, her voice filled with emotion. Jake smiled gently, his eyes warm and kind. "And I'll miss you too, Ella. But this isn't goodbye." Ella nodded, feeling comforted by his words. "We'll meet again soon," she promised confidently. Jake nodded firmly. "Yes, we will. Our work together has just begun." Ella watched Jake board his ship, waving as he disappeared inside. As the ship lifted into the sky, Ella felt a sense of peace and accomplishment. Together, they had changed not only their own lives, but also the lives of their people. As days turned into weeks, messages regularly arrived from Jake, filled with news from Earth. Ella eagerly responded, sharing the progress made on her own planet. Their friendship grew stronger, Bridging the vast distance between their worlds, the Zoran and human leaders began formal discussions, creating peaceful and meaningful connections. Ella felt proud, knowing she and Jake had started this positive. Changed out one clear night, Ella stood outside gazing up at the stars. She thought warmly of Jake, feeling deeply grateful for their friendship. Her life had been forever changed by the savage human who had bravely saved her life. Ella smiled softly, knowing the truth. Now humans were not savages. They were friends, allies, and companions. And Jake was the best friend she had ever known. After the attackers left, Ella and Jake quickly repaired the shelter, making sure everything was secure again. Ella moved carefully, feeling stronger and more confident. The victory had given her a new sense of courage and pride. Jake carefully checked the area around their shelter. He wanted to make sure it was safe for now. Ella watched him closely, admiring his calm strength and careful attention. Jake returned shortly, looking satisfied. "It seems they've retreated for now," Jake said reassuringly. "We need to be ready, though. They might come back." Ella nodded seriously. She knew they needed to remain alert. "We fought them once. We can do it again," she said firmly. Jake smiled warmly, proud of her courage. "You're right. But let's hope." "We don't have to," Ella agreed softly, feeling comforted by Jake's steady presence. Together, they gathered more supplies and strengthened their defenses. Each day, they practiced fighting and prepared carefully for any future attacks. One quiet evening, as they sat by the fire, Ella looked thoughtfully at Jake. "Do you miss your family?" she asked gently, wanting to learn more about him. Jake's eyes softened as he nodded. "Yes, I miss them very much," he admitted quietly. "But I also feel proud knowing they taught me to be strong and kind." Ella smiled softly, understanding his feelings. "I wish I could meet them one day," she said sincerely. Jake smiled warmly in return. "I'd love that," he said gently. "And I hope to meet your family too." Ella nodded happily. The thought of introducing Jake to her family filled her with excitement. She knew they would see in him the same courage and kindness she had grown to deeply respect. Days continued to pass, each one filled with quiet but meaningful routines. Jake and Ella worked together effortlessly, their bond growing stronger each day. Ella admired Jake's knowledge and patience, while Jake respected Ella's growing skills and intelligence. One morning, Jake suddenly became very alert. He stood, quickly, eyes scanning the sky. "Do you hear that?" he asked urgently. Ella listened closely, hearing a faint, familiar hum. Her eyes widened in hope. "It's a ship!" she exclaimed excitedly. Jake smiled widely, hope clear in his eyes. "Your people must have found us," he said, relief evident in his voice. They quickly created a signal fire, making sure it was clearly visible. Within moments, a Zoran ship appeared overhead, gently landing nearby. Ella felt her heart race with joy and relief as several Zoran quickly exited the ship. She recognized their uniforms and felt overwhelming happiness. Her people had come to save her. One Zoran stepped forward, clearly the leader. "Ella, we have been searching everywhere for you," he said warmly, relief clear in his voice. Ella smiled brightly. "Thank you for finding us," she said gratefully. The leader then noticed Jake standing quietly nearby, watching carefully. His eyes narrowed slightly with suspicion. "Who is this human?" he asked sharply. Ella quickly stepped closer to Jake, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. "This is Jake," she said firmly, her voice strong and clear. "He saved my life. He protected me and kept me safe." The leader looked surprised, clearly reconsidering his initial suspicion. "Truly?" he asked thoughtfully. Ella nodded seriously. "Yes, Jake is brave, kind, and strong. He risked his own life many times to save mine." The Zoran leader nodded slowly, looking carefully at Jake. "Then we owe you our thanks," he said respectfully. "We did not expect this from a human." Jake smiled, gently, clearly grateful for the acceptance. "I only did what anyone should," he replied humbly. Ella helped me just as much. Ella looked at Jake warmly, proud and grateful. We helped each other, she agreed softly. The leader nodded approvingly, clearly impressed. Then it seems we have much to learn about humans, he admitted thoughtfully. Perhaps it is time we reconsidered our views. Ella felt immense happiness at these words. I would like to help with that, she said confidently. Jake smiled warmly, feeling proud of Ella's determination. You will be perfect for it, he said sincerely. The Zorn leader smiled slightly, impressed by their courage and friendship. Let us leave this place, he said gently. Your families are waiting for you. Together, Ella and Jake walked toward the waiting ship. Ella felt excitement, knowing they were finally heading home. She looked at Jake, feeling deeply thankful to have shared this journey with him. Thank you, Ella whispered softly to Jake. For everything, Jake smiled warmly, nodding gently. Thank you, too, he replied sincerely. I couldn't have done it without you. As they entered the ship together, Ella felt certain their friendship had changed both of their lives forever. She had once feared humans, believing them savage. But now she knew the truth. Humans were brave, compassionate, and strong. And Jake was the best example of humanity she could have hoped to meet. Ella and Jake stayed hidden beneath the tangled roots for what felt like hours. Time passed slowly, marked only by their steady breathing and the distant noises of the jungle. Ella's nerves gradually calmed, reassured by Jake's steady presence beside her. Eventually, Jake cautiously peeked out from their hiding spot, carefully listening for any signs of danger. I think they're gone for now, he whispered gently. Ella exhaled in relief, but felt uncertain about what to do next. Where can we go now? She asked softly, worry clear in her voice. Jake sat thoughtfully for a moment before responding. We need to find a new safe spot and prepare better, he explained calmly. We can't stay here forever. Ella nodded slowly, understanding the necessity, but fearing the unknown. Do you know another place we can use? She asked hopefully. Jake smiled gently, reassuring her. Yes, I explored deeper into the jungle before. There's a place near the mountains. It's safer, with fresh water and good cover. Feeling more hopeful, Ella agreed. They carefully left their hiding place, moving quietly through the dense jungle. Jake guided Ella expertly, his movements confident and careful. After a long journey filled with careful steps and quiet conversations, they reached the place Jake had described. It was near a small waterfall, hidden among thick trees and surrounded by sturdy rocks. Ella looked around with admiration, feeling a sense of relief and security. It's perfect, she said softly, grateful for Jake's resourcefulness. Jake smiled, happy to see Ella relax. We can build a stronger shelter here, he explained gently. We'll have water, food, and better protection. Together, they began working. Jake showed Ella how to use vines and branches to build a strong shelter. They carefully arranged rocks and leaves to create warmth and safety. Ella quickly learned, feeling proud as she contributed to their new home. You're becoming quite skilled, Jake said warmly, smiling at Ella as she carefully arranged leaves for bedding. Ella felt a warm sense of pride. Thanks to you, she replied sincerely. You've taught me so much. As they settled into their new shelter, Jake began carefully planning their next steps. He explained how they needed to create simple weapons for defense, gather more food, and prepare carefully for future threats. Ella listened closely, eager to help. I'll do whatever I can, she said confidently. Jake nodded, impressed by her courage and determination. I trust you, he said sincerely. Together, we can handle anything. Over the next several days, they focused on strengthening their shelter and gathering resources. Jake showed Ella how to fashion simple weapons from sharpened stones and sturdy branches. Ella practiced tirelessly, quickly improving her abilities. One evening, as they rested by their fire, Ella asked Jake thoughtfully, Do you think we'll ever get home again? Jake looked thoughtfully into the flames. I believe we will, he replied gently. Your people will be looking for you, and humans don't easily give up either. Ella felt reassured by his confidence. I hope you'll visit my world one day, she said softly, imagining the possibilities. Jake smiled warmly, nodding slowly. I would like that very much, he admitted softly. Learning about new worlds is why I left Earth. Ella sighed contentedly. Despite their difficult situation, she felt grateful. She had found strength and courage she never knew she possessed. Most importantly, she had found a friend who showed her kindness and compassion beyond her expectations. Suddenly, Jake became alert, listening carefully. Ella felt tension rise again, quickly sensing something was wrong. What is it? She whispered anxiously. Jake stood slowly, eyes sharp and focused. They're coming back, he whispered urgently. They've found us. Ella felt fear rising sharply, but forced herself to stay calm. She quickly grabbed the simple weapon Jake had taught her to use. What do we do? She asked, keeping her voice steady. We defend ourselves, Jake said calmly but firmly, determination clear in his voice. They don't expect us to fight back. Ella nodded bravely, standing beside Jake with courage she never knew she possessed. The approaching sounds grew louder, footsteps crashing through the jungle. Then, their attackers appeared, fierce and threatening, holding advanced weapons. Jake and Ella stood their ground, ready to face this new danger together. The fight was swift but fierce. Jake's bravery and skill were clear as he protected Ella, expertly fighting their attackers. Ella fought bravely too, surprising herself with her determination and courage. Finally, their attackers retreated, surprised and confused by the fierce resistance. Ella and Jake stood together, breathing heavily but victorious. Ella looked at Jake with pride and gratitude. We did it, she whispered, relieved and amazed. Jake nodded, smiling warmly. Together, he replied simply. Ella felt stronger than ever, knowing they had defended each other and their home. She realized now, more clearly than ever, how deeply her view of humans had changed. Jake was not a savage. He was brave, kind, and noble. And together, they would overcome anything. Over the following days, Ella's ankle slowly healed. Jake continued caring for her patiently, ensuring she rested and ate well. Ella admired his strength and determination as he went about daily tasks, always keeping them safe and fed. Every day her trust in Jake grew stronger, deepening the bond between them. Ella became more curious about Jake's past and life on Earth. One afternoon, while sitting near the cave entrance, she gently asked, Jake, do you miss your home? Jake stopped working on a tool he was crafting and looked thoughtfully into the distance. I do, he replied softly. But not everything about it. Life there was complicated, filled with conflicts and wars. Ella felt sympathy as she listened. Carefully, her own world was peaceful, and war was something foreign and frightening. Why did you leave Earth? She asked gently. Jake sighed deeply, his eyes filled with memories. I wanted peace, he admitted quietly. Serving in the military showed me a side of humanity I wanted to escape. I chose to explore space to find something better. Ella nodded understandingly. My people see humans as savage and violent, she said cautiously. But you're not like that at all. Jake smiled kindly at her words. Humans can be many things, he explained softly. Kind, cruel, brave, scared. We're complex, just like anyone else. Ella thought carefully about this. Maybe my people need to learn that, she said softly. Maybe I should teach them. Jake smiled warmly, feeling hopeful. I'd like that, he replied sincerely. Understanding can change everything. Days passed quickly, filled with hard work and small moments of joy. Jake taught Ella how to build simple tools, how to identify safe foods, and even some basic self-defense. Ella found herself enjoying the learning, surprised at her own growing confidence. One evening, Jake and Ella sat beside their small fire, sharing stories. Jake described his family and friends, painting a vivid picture of Earth that fascinated Ella. It sounds beautiful, she said quietly, imagining his home. It can be, Jake replied softly. But it can also be challenging, Ella sighed thoughtfully. Do you think humans and Zorans could ever become friends? She asked, genuinely curious. Nodded confidently. Absolutely. All it takes is openness and understanding. Ella smiled, reassured by his confidence. I hope we can help make that happen, she said softly. Just then, a loud noise echoed through the jungle, startling them both. Jake stood immediately, alert and cautious. Stay here, he instructed gently, moving toward the cave entrance to investigate. Ella felt fear rise again, but she trusted Jake's strength and experience. She waited anxiously, listening closely to any sounds from outside. Moments passed slowly, feeling like forever, until Jake finally returned, his face tense with worry. There's trouble, he said quietly, his voice firm but calm. Another alien species has landed. They're known for aggression and violence. Ella felt her heart quicken nervously. What should we do? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. We need to move, Jake said decisively. It's not safe here anymore. Ella quickly gathered the few belongings they had. Her ankle felt much better now, strong enough for travel. Together, they left the cave swiftly, moving silently into the dense jungle. The journey was tense and difficult. Jake carefully guided. Ella through thick undergrowth, always alert to danger. They heard distant shouts and movements behind them, growing steadily closer. We need somewhere safe, Ella whispered anxiously. Feeling her earlier confidence slipping, Jake nodded, scanning the surroundings carefully. There's an old shelter I found weeks ago. We can hide there. They moved quickly, pushing themselves harder. Finally, Jake led Ella to a hidden place beneath large trees and tangled roots. It was small but well hidden, providing good cover from searching eyes. Stay quiet, Jake whispered reassuringly, guiding her into the cramped shelter. We'll be safe here. Ella curled up tightly, heart pounding with worry. Jake stayed close, keeping watch and offering quiet reassurance. Soon, voices approached their hiding spot, harsh and angry. Ella held her breath, terrified they might be discovered. She felt Jake's hand gently touch hers, offering quiet strength and comfort. Eventually, the voices moved away, fading into the distance. Ella released a shaky breath. Feeling relieved, Jake turned to her, his eyes serious but hopeful. We're okay for now, he whispered reassuringly. Ella nodded slowly, grateful to have Jake by her side. Thank you, she said softly. I wouldn't survive without you, Jake smiled warmly. We're in this together, he replied simply. We'll always protect each other. Ella smiled back, feeling the powerful truth in his words. The danger around them felt less overwhelming now, knowing they had each other. Their friendship had grown stronger through adversity, and Ella knew they could survive whatever challenges lay ahead. Ella woke up early the next morning, feeling rested but still sore. She noticed Jake was already awake and moving around the cave, quietly gathering supplies. He saw her watching and gave her a friendly smile. Good morning, Jake said softly. How's your ankle feeling today? Ella gently tested her injured ankle by moving it slightly. Still sore, but better, she replied, offering a small smile in return. Thanks to your help, Jake nodded, satisfied. We'll take it easy today. I need to find food and fresh water. You can stay here and rest. Ella felt nervous about staying alone again. Her eyes betrayed her worry, and Jake seemed to understand her concern immediately. Or, Jake added gently, seeing her anxiety, you could come with me. It might do you good to move around a bit. Relief filled Ella's expression. I would prefer that, she admitted softly. She didn't want to stay alone in the cave. Feeling vulnerable and uncertain, Jake smiled warmly. All right then. We'll go. Slowly, and be careful. Jake helped Ella to her feet. She leaned slightly against him at first, testing how much weight she could bear. It was painful, but manageable, especially with Jake supporting her. Together, They moved slowly into the jungle. Jake walked carefully, helping Ella every step of the way. Ella was grateful for his patience and kindness. It was hard for her to believe that just yesterday she had thought humans were dangerous and savage. Jake was showing her a completely different side of humanity, one she admired deeply. Jake stopped frequently to point out useful plants and safe fruits. Ella carefully noted everything he taught her, amazed at his knowledge of survival. She realized how little she knew about living outside the safety of her advanced society. "How do you know so much about survival?" Ella asked curiously, as Jake carefully selected edible fruits from a bush. Jake paused thoughtfully. "On Earth, we often train for survival situations," he explained gently. "I served in our military, and knowing these things was important." Ella listened closely, intrigued by his story. "Was it difficult?" she asked softly. Jake's eyes grew distant for a moment. "Yes, it was," he admitted. "But it taught me to respect nature, to adapt, and to appreciate simple things." Ella nodded, understanding more clearly how Jake had become so strong and capable. She admired his resilience and calmness. After gathering enough fruit and filling small containers with fresh water, Jake led Ella to a small stream. The water flowed gently, clear and refreshing. They sat by the edge, quietly resting. "It's beautiful here," Ella said, looking around at the peaceful surroundings. "But dangerous too." Jake agreed quietly. "Yes, but every world has beauty and danger. You just need to know how to survive both." Ella smiled gently at his wise words. "Maybe humans aren't as different from us as I thought," she admitted shyly. "We Zorans think we know everything, but clearly we don't." Jake chuckled softly. "No one knows everything. The trick is learning from each other." Ella nodded seriously. "I've learned a lot from you already," she said sincerely. "More than I ever imagined." Jake smiled kindly. "And I've learned from you too. Your people seem peaceful, thoughtful. That's important." Ella felt warmth in her heart at his words. She knew she could trust Jake completely now. Together, they had faced danger and discovered understanding. It was comforting to know they could rely on each other. Suddenly, Ella noticed Jake's attention shift to a nearby bush. His eyes narrowed slightly, alert and wary. Ella's heart quickened nervously. "What is it?" she whispered. "Quiet," Jake murmured gently. He rose silently, watching the bush carefully. Ella held her breath, unsure of what might happen next. Slowly, a small creature emerged from behind the leaves. It was tiny and furry, with big, frightened eyes. Ella immediately relaxed, feeling sympathy for the small animal. Jake smiled slightly. "Just a little visitor," he said softly, kneeling down and offering a small piece of fruit. "See?" Ella watched as the creature cautiously approached Jake, took the fruit quickly, and darted away. She smiled in relief, amused by the harmless visitor. "Even here, kindness matters," Jake said quietly, turning back to Ella. "It makes survival possible." Ella nodded, feeling a deep understanding of Jake's words. They had each shown kindness to one another, and that kindness had formed a strong bond between them. Together, they slowly began their journey back to the cave. Ella felt stronger physically and emotionally, thanks to Jake's support and guidance. She knew the days ahead would be challenging, but with Jake beside her, she felt ready to face anything. Their trust had grown quickly, turning them into strong partners. Ella was certain now humans weren't savage. They were resilient and compassionate. And Jake, especially, was someone she was proud to call her friend. Jake carried Ella carefully through the dense jungle, stepping slowly over roots and rocks. He moved with confidence, clearly knowing this world well. Ella rested her head against his shoulder, feeling both afraid and strangely safe. She was not used to being around humans, and every moment felt unreal. "Where are we going?" Ella asked softly, glancing around nervously at the endless trees and shadows. "There's a safe place nearby," Jake replied calmly. "I've been staying there since my ship crashed months ago. It's hidden and secure. We'll be safe there." Ella looked up at his calm face, wondering how someone could survive alone in such a dangerous place for so long. Humans had always seemed wild and savage to her, but Jake seemed very different. He was careful, gentle, and thoughtful. After a short while, Jake slowed down and gently placed Ella on the ground. "Wait here a moment," he whispered. "I have to check something." Ella nodded, nervously watching as Jake moved silently into the trees ahead. Alone again, the quiet jungle noises seemed louder, more frightening. Her heart quickened, but she tried to remain calm, trusting Jake would return soon. A few minutes passed, and she felt relief when Jake appeared again, smiling slightly. "It's clear," he said, lifting her up again. "We can move safely now." They soon arrived at a small cave hidden behind thick vines. Jake carefully moved the plants aside and stepped inside. The cave was surprisingly comfortable, with a simple bed made from leaves and soft moss. There were several tools made from wood and stone, carefully arranged nearby. "This is your home?" Ella asked, amazed at how neat and orderly everything was. Jake nodded as he carefully placed her down on the soft bed. "It's not much, but it keeps me safe." Ella looked around the cave, impressed by Jake's ability to adapt and survive. Everything was simple but practical. She realized she had greatly underestimated humans and their skills. "I'll look at your ankle now," Jake said gently, kneeling beside her. He carefully removed her torn shoe and examined her injury with gentle hands. Ella winced slightly as he touched her swollen ankle. "Is it very bad?" she asked, trying to hide her fear. Jake shook his head, giving her a reassuring smile. "It looks painful, but it's not broken. You'll be okay with some rest and care." Ella felt grateful for his calm and reassuring presence. "Why are you helping me?" she asked quietly. "You don't even know me." Jake paused, then looked up at her with serious eyes. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said simply. "And because being alone taught me the importance of helping each other." Ella nodded slowly, deeply moved by his words. She realized humans might be misunderstood by her people. Jake clearly had kindness and courage in him, things she had never expected. Jake carefully bandaged Ella's ankle with clean cloth strips he had saved from his own supplies. "You should rest now," he advised softly. "I'll keep watch." Ella felt safe enough to close her eyes, trusting Jake completely. Her exhaustion quickly overcame her, and she drifted into a peaceful sleep. When she woke, it was dark outside. A small fire crackled nearby, casting gentle shadows on the cave walls. Jake sat quietly, staring thoughtfully into the flames. "How long was I asleep?" Ella asked softly, stretching slightly. "Several hours," Jake replied gently, turning to face her. "You needed the rest. How do you feel?" "Much better," Ella said honestly, moving her ankle carefully. "Thank you for taking care of me," Jake nodded warmly. "We're stuck together now," he said gently, offering her a small cup filled with water. "At least until help arrives." Ella took the cup gratefully and sipped the cool water, feeling refreshed. "Do you think someone will find us?" she asked nervously. Jake's expression grew serious, but he remained hopeful. "I believe so," he replied. "Your people are advanced and skilled. They'll be searching. Until then, we'll survive together." Ella smiled at his confidence, feeling more hopeful herself. "Maybe humans and Zorns are more alike than we thought," she said softly, meeting his gaze. Jake smiled warmly, nodding. "I think we all have more in common than we realize." Ella settled back comfortably, feeling a surprising peace. She trusted Jake, and she knew he trusted her. Together, they could face whatever challenges came their way. She knew their bond had formed from kindness and understanding. Despite coming from different worlds. As the night passed quietly, Ella and Jake talked gently, sharing small stories about their homes, dreams, and families. The walls between them slowly disappeared. Replaced by growing friendship and trust, Ella realized her entire world was changing. Thanks to the savage human who had saved her life, she was no longer afraid. She was eager to learn and understand. Together, she and Jake were ready to face whatever tomorrow would bring. Ella's heart beat quickly as she ran through the thick alien jungle. Every shadow seemed alive, filled with danger. Branches scraped against her delicate blue skin, and sharp leaves tore at her clothing. She could hear the growls and snarls close. Behind her, a terrifying reminder that something was hunting her. She stumbled over thick roots that twisted across her path. Fear made it hard to think clearly, but she knew she had to keep moving. Ella, a peaceful researcher from the Gentle Zoran species, had never faced such dangers before. Her life had always been safe, full of study and quiet exploration. Just moments ago, she had been examining the colorful plants of this strange world. Ella had been sent here to document new forms of life. She had felt safe near her ship, surrounded by equipment designed to protect her. But that safety had vanished instantly when a sudden explosion had destroyed her ship. Leaving her stranded and a lone dot, she was miles from any help and completely alone on this hostile planet. Her only hope was to find somewhere to hide until help could arrive. But the sounds behind her grew louder, making her chest tighten with panic. A sharp pain suddenly shot through her leg as Ella stepped on something hidden beneath the jungle leaves. She cried out and fell to the ground, clutching her ankle. Tears filled her eyes as she realized she could not stand up again. The pain was intense, and she knew she was trapped. Ella pulled herself against a nearby tree, pressing her back against its rough bark. Her breath came in short gasps, and she desperately searched for something to defend herself. But all she found were soft vines and fragile leaves, nothing useful against whatever was hunting her dot. The jungle grew suddenly quiet, as if holding its breath. Ella's heart pounded louder in the silence. She closed her eyes for a moment, hoping that somehow her pursuers had lost her. But a low growl told her that was not true. Slowly, she opened her eyes and saw dark shapes emerging from the shadows. The creatures were large, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Their sharp claws dug into the ground as they moved closer, and their powerful muscles rippled under their sleek, dark fur. Ella had never seen such creatures before, but she knew they meant danger. Their sharp teeth glistened as they slowly approached her, growling hungrily. "Please," she whispered helplessly, though she knew they would not understand or show mercy. "Just." As the nearest beast prepared to leap forward, a sudden loud yell pierced the quiet. Ella watched in shock as something else burst into view, a strange figure, shouting wildly. Her first thought was that it was another alien, another danger to fear. But as the figure stepped into clearer view, she realized it was something else. Entirely not human, Ella's people, the Zoran, had always considered humans dangerous and primitive, often describing them as savages. She had learned stories about them being aggressive and wild, never trustworthy or safe. But right now, this human was the only thing standing between Ella and certain death. The human held a large stick, swinging it with strength and determination. He shouted loudly, making himself seem bigger and scarier. The beast hesitated, uncertain about this new threat. Then, the human charged at them, brandishing his makeshift weapon. Surprised by his courage and aggression, the creatures growled in confusion and backed away. Ella watched, amazed and frightened. Her savior moved with a strange grace, clearly used to fighting and surviving. His movements were strong and fearless. And soon the creatures decided the fight was not worth it. They disappeared quickly into the jungle shadows, leaving Ella alone with the human. Panting slightly, the human turned toward her. Ella shrank back against the tree, unsure if she had just exchanged one danger for another. The human dropped his stick and held out his empty hands, showing he meant no harm. "Easy," he said in a gentle voice. His eyes were clear and kind, not wild or aggressive as she had expected. "I'm not going to hurt you." Ella's breathing began to slow, and she allowed herself to believe his words. He slowly approached and knelt beside her, carefully examining her injured ankle. "This doesn't look good," he said softly. "But don't worry, I'll help you." Ella felt relief wash over her, mixed with confusion and surprise. This human was nothing like the savage creature she had expected. Instead, he seemed kind and gentle, willing to risk himself to help a stranger. "Who are you?" Ella asked, her voice shaking slightly. He smiled reassuringly. "My name is Jake," he replied, "and I promise you're safe now." For the first time since her ship had exploded, Ella felt a small bit of hope. As Jake gently lifted her into his arms, she wondered what would happen next. But one thing was clear. Everything she thought she knew about humans was about to change.